subordinate ministries and or nonprofits. Some of this content may be adult in nature, so please use discretion while watching with your children. This video is for entertainment purposes only. I'd like to welcome you to a brand new show called The Changing Times with your hosts, Don Blackard and Lynn Morris. Take it away.
Hey, thanks, Matt. So welcome, everyone, to our inaugural show, Changing Times. And what we say, Don, we said real issues, real discussions. Real issues, real discussions. And I tell you what, so I'm Lynn Morris, and this is
Don Blackard.
Don Blackard. And Don, why don't we just tell a little bit about you to begin with, just a little bit, where we're going to get to know each other well. We want our listeners to, and people that are viewing this show, to contact us. There's ways that we'll let you know how you can ask us questions or make comments, and we're going to thrive on those comments and questions, and we want to make sure that we all participate in this new show. You can make it what you want to make it. But Don, just tell the listeners a little bit about your background.
Okay, well, I've been in Missouri my entire life. My father is a pastor here in town. Him and my grandfather have been pastors at the same church for 70 years. I went on to get my bachelor's degree from Missouri State, and then went on and joined the Army National Guard, where I served in Iraq for 18 months. I am currently working to become a cardiac sonographer, so I just finished one of my state boards. I have one more state board, and then the hope is to later be able to scan the hearts of kids for free in our community and look for congenital issues and things that will affect their health. I love the Lord, and I'm just open to any opportunity that He brings me to and anything that I can do to improve my community and help, and I'm just happy to be here. Thanks for having me, Lynn.
Well, Don, thank you. And you know, you've got a great dad that's a minister, longtime minister at a church here in Springfield, and we'll probably end up talking about that later on. And so just a little bit about me is I also have lived in Springfield almost my whole life. I was born down in West Plains, Missouri, and moved up to Springfield with my parents at about the age of 3. So I went through the Springfield school system, Delaware, Jarrett, Parkview, SMS, pre-pharmacy, and then pharmacy school at UMKC in Kansas City, graduate degree at Master's in Healthcare Administration at Southwest Baptist. My wife and I Janet ran a pharmacy chain. We started with one pharmacy store back in 1977 in Ozark. We filled 12 scripts that first day, and then it was just like a miracle. Our business continued to keep growing and keep growing. From 12 prescriptions, we ended up with 26 pharmacies and 1.4 million scripts a year. Largest independent pharmacy chain in the state of Missouri. And we did that. We finally retired in 2018 after 44 years of running our pharmacy business. Later on, I ran for school board at Ozark. I served 2 terms, 6 years, as I'm extremely involved in education of young children, trying to make sure that our education experience is what it needs to be for young children. And we're going to have shows on that, too. Don and I have already talked about that, and there's a lot of us that we are so proud of our teachers and people that are helping young kids. But on the other hand, I just have to be honest with people. I don't really know. I have some suspicions that our public school system today may have some weaknesses that we need to look at and try to improve on. We can always make improvements, and we want to do that. And then somehow I got involved in politics, never thought about it, had somebody come to my house, wanted me to run for office. And so I did serve 8 years in this state house in Jefferson City, District 140, Eastern Christian County. And I was termed out last December. And then I don't know why I decided to run for commissioner, but we had a great gentleman down in Christie County, Mike Robertson, who was a former highway patrol officer, and he also was a former sheriff. Just a good guy, and he decided he wasn't going to run. He served 2 years as someone the governor appointed, and then he decided not to run again, and I think he was having health issues. And so I wouldn't have run against him, but I said, well, I'll help the county for 4 years. And so that's where I am today. I'm sitting as a commissioner for Eastern Christian County and really enjoying that job. Not quite as political as what I was doing up in Jefferson City. And so that's great. But we want to go ahead and introduce our guest today, Sergeant Mike. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you all? Good to be here.
Well, I tell you what, thank you for being part of our first show. And we're going to have many, many shows over times, but we wanted, one of the things that Jim Whining told me is they had taken a survey with Acts Ministry Group and all their listeners and the people that view their programs, and that human trafficking was one of the top things that was a point of interest to. They had listed about 20 things that people were interested in on social issues. And so we decided to start with human trafficking. And because I think you're going to tell people that, some people think it's one thing and it may be something different, or you may think it's worse than it is. It's a serious issue, but I think you're going to give them a lot of background. So you've been with the Highway Patrol 22, 23 years?
23 years, yes.
23 years. Mm-hmm. That's well, thank you for your service. I mean, we are so proud of the law enforcement. At my house between Ozark and Nixa, I have 2 signs, one in the front and one in the back supporting the blue. Yes. So, and the guy that mows my yard on a weekly basis, he does it part-time with a group that does it full-time, but he's my guy, and he is a policeman in Springfield. Mm-hmm. And so on his day off, he's mowing yards for this company that mows yards.
Right.
And so he really enjoyed my last year when he came to my house to see my 2 signs.
Yeah, imagine he appreciates it.
Yeah, he really liked that. So yeah, we have that. So, and you really are public relations director, is that what?
Yeah, I'm the Troop D Public Information and Education Officer.
Okay.
So my area, there's 2 of us here in Troop D. One's in the Joplin, Carthage market, and I cover the Springfield, Branson market.
Okay. And how many officers are in your troop?
In the troop, we probably have close to 120, and there's 22 zones. Some of those zones are, a split zone, if you will, or a 2-county, 1 zone. But that's the Southwest Missouri Troop D area.
Well, I told you over the phone, I think I did, that I got this itch to buy a Harley. And so I bought an old Harley, a fat boy Harley, kind of for a fat boy like me. And so I wasn't very good at riding it. And so my wife said it was dangerous. She would never ride with me. Mm-hmm. And so I took that 3-day highway patrol course. And really, I recommend to anybody, if you're thinking about buying a motorcycle today, you need to take the 3-day highway patrol class. You're going to learn so many things in the classroom, watching videos, making you think of things that you don't think about, then actually taking some of their hazard courses and learning how to navigate your motorcycle. It's just a great class, and it really helped me a lot. And so I would recommend that to you. So you have anything else you want to start off with? Because I think we've got some questions, but if there's any opening comments you want to make, Sergeant Mike?
Well, understand that for, several years now, human trafficking, commercial sexual exploitation has been a concern, and it's a growing concern, and I think it's going to continue to be a growing concern. But what seems to be underwritten that goes hand in hand with that is the labor trafficking as well, for whatever reason. But I think, based on what I have heard, what I've seen, and questions that I've been asked, it really hits home with people in communities the size of Springfield, that there's a tone of fear when the word trafficking is used. And, so hopefully today we can really look to see what trafficking is, and more importantly, what it isn't, and everything that goes with it. And maybe at that point, at the end of this day, there'll be, some with a better understanding of what it is, and maybe put some fears to bed and dispel some myths.
Well, very good. Don, you have a question that you want to start off with?
Let's do, talk to me about what do I need to be aware of, like in situations. What are some things that I need to have my eyes open to? Like what would be something that would seem off, or, you just can't put your finger on it kind of thing?
And just to clarify, you as an individual?
Me as an individual, yeah. I'm at a truck stop or McDonald's or somewhere and I see something, like what would those indicators be that might indicate that?
And we can particularly look at a truck stop type of venue, because when we're traveling the larger corridors, the interstates, and those larger chain truck stops, whether it's Love's, Pilot, those types of truck stops that tend to have a lot of vehicles, a lot of 18-wheelers, if you will, parked in the parking lot. If you're traveling, you're passing through that, you happen to stop, grabbing a bite to eat, getting gas, stretching your legs, and you notice, it's maybe late at night or after dark, and one indicator could be, and not always, is, one or two trucks that are parked, and they're usually all side by side, a truck flashing its lights. If you see a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, whatever, females that are, in the parking lot area that are not necessarily affiliated with a passenger vehicle, that they've just gotten out of to stretch their legs, but they're going from one truck or going back into the main building and going from one truck to the next truck. And you may not see that, like somebody handing out pamphlets. They're, that's, to me, that's out of place. And that to me says something. Does that mean that there is a trafficking incident there? Not necessarily. So at that point, we need to, we would need to define what trafficking is and what it isn't. Other things are, unattended youth in these places that are, sometimes these truck stops on the interstates are remote. They're not necessarily next to a large metro area or a town. They may be in between, which is the purpose of that. So if we see unattended youth that are in, somewhat physical disarray, clothing is mused, they're not clean, they look distressed, that would be, a time to maybe look for an opportunity to contact that youth, child, boy, girl, whatever it would be, and just ask them simple questions. Are you all right? Do you have money? Where's your mom and dad? Where are you from? Those types of questions. And let the suspicions that you may have or the cues that you're getting either be, laid to rest, or I need to take the next step farther. And that next step is we, you as a civilian, you as a motorist, traveler, it's not your job to rescue or intervene, but to call the authorities that can do that.
Would that call be the number, the 1-800 number? What would you recommend?
Really, at that point in time, 911 is not going to be, if it's a highway patrol, possibly the non-emergency star 55 here in Missouri. Several other states have a similar star type number, but in Missouri it's star 55. That will get you to the nearest troop for the location that you're in, and let them know what your, what your observations are. Obviously where you're at, what your observations are. Depending on how much information you've gleaned from whoever you've talked to, and it could be a 20-year-old, young man, young girl that has, coming and going from, truck to truck, and we can generally tell by body language and by just the general appearance of somebody, whether that's in place or out of place, and what causes our suspicions to move us to that next step. So it's just simple neighbor watching neighbor, person looking out for person, in cases like this, and it's easy to ignore it. It's easy to see it, suspect it, in your mind you're thinking, I bet they are, fill in the blanks. And then we get back in our vehicle and continue on down the road without doing something.
And I feel like some people are afraid might not be the word, but they don't want to be wrong or, call and not have it. But I would rather call, and if I felt those suspicions, and let you guys do your job than to
Right.
not call and let those people go on down the road.
Right, exactly. So it's going to be up to the individual. You're not mandated you're not a mandated reporter in cases like this. But again, if we're looking out for each other, it would be the right thing to do in just mentioning it. Because what that does is that can now place a trooper, a deputy, a city police officer in a position where they can at least go out and check it, and they can further, they can continue the contact with that person. And at that point, your road guy, your road trooper, your deputy, your city police officer, they've got the information and the resources to take that person's information based on what their responses are and send that up to the actual human trafficking unit, if that's what it looks like, and maybe what that direction is going based on appearance and responses.
Yeah.
And
So we all need to have our eyes open. That's everywhere, looking out for everybody,
Right.
and just being really situational aware.
Right.
Don't put your head down. Like, you need
Yeah.
to be up and looking at everything going on.
And easily, while we're on this subject, and we can cover this right now, and I take this directly from the Missouri State Highway Patrol's website. And if you were to plug that into whatever search engine that you're using and bring up Missouri State Highway Patrol, scroll down and find the box that says Divisions of the Highway Patrol, and then find Division of Drug and Crime Control, or DDCC. Under DDCC, there's a few other subdivisions, if you will, that we work with or work at. One of them being the Human Trafficking IPC division. And underneath that, it gives you some bullet points on, entitled underneath, how do I recognize human trafficking? And then what can I do if I suspect human trafficking? And just going over a few of those is some of the things that I've already mentioned, based on appearance, based on body language, and based on what they're doing and where they're at. And this is kind of an unusual thing. It would be unusual for me as a person traveling to ask these types of questions, but this is something that we can all arm ourselves with. Does the person appear to be coached on what to say? Are they, if we approach them, and does somebody, an adult figure, immediately come to them and then want to maybe capture that particular conversation? If it's a child, are they attending school? So these are questions that are going to be awkward, potentially. I know it would be potentially for me as just a citizen not having done this job. But based on what you're seeing, based on what you suspect, is the person disoriented or confused or showing signs of mental or physical abuse? These are things that are obviously catching your eye to begin with. And those are just a few. Will they make eye contact, or do they drop their head? Do they look scared? Are they on phones or asked to borrow your phone? Those types of things. So maybe it's going to be blatantly obvious if you know what to look for. And now you're in a position to help and do something. And what do you do? Again, on this webpage, there is a phone number, and it's 1-844-487-0492. And I'm going to say it one more time before I'm finished with this. But this is the main line that you would call if you suspect this. I still firmly believe, based on what I've done for a living for the last 23 years, call the non-emergency number or even emergency number to whatever local municipality or county that you may be in. But Star 55 is definitely going to reach the nearest troop for the Highway Patrol. Let them know what you got first, because that number is probably not going to be manned, or it's going to be a recording that you're going to get if it's after hours to begin with. So just bear that in mind if you're looking through the web page. If you talk to someone you suspect is a victim of human trafficking, kindly ask any questions.
We'll watch it later.
After almost
Here's
an hour.
What are they
spell
doing?
names.
Do they see their family?
N-I-K-I.
Do they keep any of the money that they earn?
N-I-K-I-C-A-R-T-E-R.
Yeah,
Where have
Carter
we
is
gotten,
spelled just like
where
the
we come from
president's
to get
last
to
name,
that
Jimmy
point?
Carter's last name. It's N-I-K-I.
These are kind of fun.
Apparently
I
that's
can
somebody,
get in your ears and try.
Set it up.
someone screaming for help,
So you played along. So
saying, hey, here's an opportunity. I'm in front
From
of you.
Orlando,
In a
Arkansas.
position where
Yeah,
I
that's in Nevada, Tennessee.
enslaved,
border.
if you
That's a
will,
big
whatever.
border.
They may even tell
Okay,
them their
and you
story.
might want to take these with
Find them
you.
a safe place. You know, take them inside the truck
You
stop.
want these here?
And at that point, we need to be on the phone calling,
Take those, because those are all booster cards. So you have to put them in.
finish up what you started.
Thank you.
But bottom line is, you know, we don't want to rescue them as far as taking them out of that physically and carrying them off. That's a whole other set of problems because you don't know who this person is. Call the authorities and let them deal with that too. So that's it in a nutshell regarding the tips that you can garner from our webpage, and knowing that, you know, Missouri, the state of Missouri is on the forefront of human trafficking, at least in this part of the country. We have so many states and agencies within states that are coming to us for the training. All of our troopers, well, the majority of the troopers in the state of Missouri have had what we call the IPC training, and that's for law enforcement exclusively. But what that does is it gives us those tools and to know what we're looking for from, you know, suspected, not only traffickers, but all those things that go along with it. And that's the sexual predators, those that have been found guilty of, convicted of a sexual crime, placing them in that category as a sexual offender. And they have a certain amount of criteria that they have to meet on a daily basis. And if they're not in compliance with any of those, then it is a violation of state law. So those things like that we become more aware of, and how those things kind of intertwine and entangle when it comes to the actual, you know, terminology or term of human trafficking that we use, which, you know, I'll get into defining what that is and what that isn't.
Yeah, would you like to go ahead and define
Yeah.
that?
So, you know, a lot of people, at least to my knowledge, based on, again, the questions that I've been asked and the curiosity that people have, is that human trafficking is the trafficker is the man or two men in the white van with the door open, you know, in a suburban area. Not true. Human trafficking, or the human trafficker, is the person that you don't see in the Facebook post of a car that has a zip tie on the windshield wiper, or a water bottle that's been zip tied to the windshield wiper blade, or sitting on top of the hood of the car, or on the side view mirror, or they happen to see that somebody's taken some type of a permanent marker and marked something on their rear bumper. Those are simply not, that's simply not trafficking. That's more than likely, and I want everybody to understand this, that has derived someplace in years past as a post on some outlet of social media that is unsubstantiated, and it evokes fear unnecessarily in those that subscribe to what they see. It's just simply not true. And it seems like it comes around once a year, maybe twice a year, that you'll see a post on Facebook, hey, tell your family, tell your friends, tell your children to be watching out for this. This happened to a friend of mine, and she took a picture of, you know, this zip tie, if you will, that's been placed around the side mirror of her vehicle. And what this is to lead you to believe, well, I found this. I can't get into my car until I remove it. I can't use my windshield wiper blades because it's been zip tied, or it's got something placed underneath it to distract me so somebody can come snatch me up from behind. It's not true. There's nothing that has ever been substantiated. Can that happen? Yes, it can happen. Is this trafficking? No, it's not. More than likely, it is a prank that is an ongoing prank with, you know, kids that want to put this back out on Facebook or wherever and propagate it, and propagate the fear unnecessarily. So that's not trafficking. Those are not your traffickers. If that were the case, we would be working missing children, missing women, missing people in the Springfield area. We would have more than, but we don't have any substantiated cases. We don't have any confirmed cases of that in this area. So please, you know, ease your mind, rest your mind that what you see on Facebook regarding that, it's not human trafficking. So that's what it's not. So human trafficking is basically somebody that uses force, fraud, or coercion to profit from a commercial sex act. That's what trafficking is. Okay, where does that actually come from? And I'll go back through just a few definitions here, but while we're leading into that, where am I going to find trafficking? When we're talking about sexual trafficking, is most of the time, statistically shown, brothels, strip clubs, escort and massage services, pimp-controlled prostitution on the street, and particularly on the internet. So when we look at the demand for human trafficking, because human trafficking is kind of the end-all, be-all when we put everything together on what we're talking about when we're talking about the sexual part of the trafficking. So we have to define what a commercial sex act is, and I think we all know what that is if we look at the world's oldest profession being prostitution. It's a sex act where anything of value, whether it's money, clothes, shelter, drugs, food, is being traded for sex. That is a commercial sex act by definition under Missouri statute. Again, sex trafficking occurs when someone uses force, fraud, or coercion to cause a commercial sex act with an adult or causes a minor to commit a commercial sex act. There doesn't have to be any fraud, force, or coercion for that to happen because we're talking about a minor. Okay, that's an important thing to note as well. Commercial sexual exploitation is basically commodifying a person as an object and trading them for sex for profit. That in itself, the commercial sex exploitation, as we talk about that, it happens when anyone is sold in the sex industry. And it is the demand which allows for trafficking. So basically it's this: the more of a demand there is for pornography and anything associated with it, as long as that demand is there, whether we have the ability to view that on a pay-per-view, video, internet, or if we're looking at anything in the sex industry being the prostitution, the brothels, things of that nature. Now, if I use those, if I use the what they call CSE, which is the commercial sexual exploitation, along with that demand, we're not ruling out that it is still a very harmful and exploitive form, and it's usually always tends to be under the auspices of a system as a whole of being violent, because we're using force, fraud, or coercion to do that. But how do we get from A to Z in getting into being trafficked? We have to look at the vulnerabilities, and this is where it kind of goes back to originally talking about what are we looking for as just a citizen, and what are we looking for. We also have an obligation as guardians, as neighbors, as parents, to understand kids, youth that are in our life, and what the vulnerabilities there are. So a few of those being where the predators, if you will, those that are in the market to exploit for trafficking. They're looking for the vulnerabilities of people that have undergone childhood sexual abuse, childhood physical abuse, kids that have insecurities about their looks, about their body, loneliness, feeling of isolation, cognitive issues, divorce, and then they get online to websites, to chat sites, or whatever, and what they're looking for is somebody or something to give them value. And that's where the predators, that's where they're lurking. That's their hunting ground. So once that predator that's out there cues in on what is being put out by the youth that's in this position, then they can reverse that diminutive feeling that they have of their own self-value and say, send me pictures. Oh, you look beautiful. And this chat continues until a trust is built, until a meeting can be made, and then where the coercion comes in, let's say you have a youth or a young man that is drug dependent, and this predator can promise that drug to keep you moving, to keep you going, to keep that addiction satisfied. Well, the coercion comes in now that, okay, I want you to perform this so I can profit from it. If you don't, I'm taking the drug away from you. That's a perfect picture of what trafficking looks like.
There's usually a grooming process that goes forth when the predator is going after younger children and building that trust, and it doesn't just happen overnight. It's something that they're grooming them for, is what my research has showed.
Right, and you have to understand too, and it's hopefully those that still have this fear, this misunderstanding of what it is, right along those same lines. We have to understand that traffickers, again, the grooming process, the relationship building, it's not somebody that's going to just snatch somebody off the street, throw them into a trafficking trade like we see in Hollywood. That doesn't happen. Well, it happens so rare, it's statistically unsupportive. So the part that we have to remember is that if we can intervene with somebody, whether it's our own child, a grandchild, a niece, a neighbor, whatever our relationship is, whatever how wide our eyes are open, to at least recognize, okay, what are you doing online? What are your contacts online? What are your activities online? And that's a prime source of being in a position to intervene with the potential of that predator that has trafficking and exploiting this person in mind for their profit and their gain by using coercion, by using force or using fraud in whatever means. That's where the intervention, because that's where the majority of it is originating from, is online.
Sergeant Mike, do you think that this pandemic, because it's created lots of problems and situations, do you think this pandemic has caused an escalation of trafficking, or is it about the same?
Well, I don't know if it's created more opportunity because of the social distancing, because of certain shutdowns of businesses where we would normally could go. Schools, we're no longer in school to occupy our minds. So now we are, we're not in seated classrooms. We're now online, or have been in the past. So that leaves more idle time to remain online and maybe not function at, in a school type setting. But now we have more time to look for sources that's going to give those with vulnerabilities value.
Well, Dr. Mark Stringer, who is the director of the mental health department for the state of Missouri, he told me that it's going to really be like a tsunami, a Missouri tsunami, and I couldn't figure out exactly how we're going to have a tsunami in Missouri. But then he's talking about mental health, and he's talking about how much child abuse has gone on this last year. It's really increased because the teachers can't see, bruises or see the kids. More spousal abuse, just all kinds of things going on, whether it be depression or anxiety or whatever. Suicides increased. Mm-hmm. And so it just, I just thought probably this pandemic would have increased, maybe make it easier to do this type of thing. Well,
and again, going back to that, the time online has increased because of COVID. But let me give you some numbers here just to kind of give you an idea when we look at the year 2020, just the incidents that the trafficking unit for the Highway Patrol has responded to. In 2018, we had 41 incidents regarding intervention of child protecting children. and/or human trafficking. In 2019, it increased from 41 to 171 incidents. In 2020, it went to 385 incidents.
Wow.
As of March 27th of this year, we're at 93 incidents. And we have to understand, too, that because of the nature of everything that surrounds the commercial sexual exploitation and trafficking, because, those are two different things. We just need to understand that. But it's all underreported, just because of things that are missed, because those that perhaps are in it, whether it's the prostitute at the truck stop, is not going to say that it is, because she has or he has a larger fear of what's on the side that she's on now versus being rescued. She doesn't trust the rescue portion of this. She doesn't, that potential act of being rescued, she doesn't trust it as much as she fears what she's or he is currently in, as far as being held captive, so to speak, being trafficked. So because of situations like that, because of the fact that we just can't reach out to everybody and them tell us verbatim, I'm being trafficked, it's very underreported. It's a very underreported statistic.
Well, one of the things I also want to point out that we had great illustrations on signs that you look for. One of the things that I think about, I just got one son, 2 daughters, 5 granddaughters, 1 grandson. So you're traveling and you go to a gas station, gas up, get something to eat, and all the women always have a purse. Even my little grandchildren, once they get to a certain age, they're gonna have some kind of little purse with them. And now all the kids have a cell phone, and they wouldn't leave the cell phone in the car. They're going to take it with them. And so I would think that young women and older women that go into a restroom without any purse or cell phone would be a potential suspect that we might want to watch for and see how they act, because they definitely may be being trafficked because they don't want anybody to have any ID on them or anything like that. So we might watch out for that. But Matt, how much time do we have left?
You have, I'm going to give you 5 more minutes.
5 more minutes. Okay, 5 more minutes. Okay, so Sergeant Mike, is there anything else that you want to kind of sum up?
And repeat that phone number for us, if you would.
Yeah, let's get that phone number again.
Okay. Well, again, I want to differentiate the fact that depending on the situation that you find yourself in, based on the suspicions and observations that you're making, if you find yourself in a position where your degree of certainty is a little higher that this person could potentially be in some sort of danger, whether they're being held against their will for whatever reason or trafficking, is to dial *55 or 911. But as far as the helpline, that number is for the state is going to be 1-844-487-0492. And if you're a victim, that's a number to call. If you need more resources as wanting to be one of those that helps, or because you're seeing something and you're seeing it on a frequent basis, that's the number to call.
Can I get that number one more time?
Yeah. And that number is 1-844-487-0492. The National Human Trafficking Resource Center is 1-888. I'll start over. 1-888-373-7888. And again, that's 1-888-373-7888. And that's the National Human Trafficking Resource Center phone number.
And that line, Sergeant Mike, is on 24 hours a day. So you can call 24 hours a day and someone's going to answer that phone. That's
Right.
important. And they also have a text number. You can text 233-733. That's Be Free. and someone will respond to that text. I just took that off of where the listeners can see it at the courthouse, historic courthouse in Ozark, where I work. I just took that off the bulletin board. I'll put it back on this morning, and because I thought that was kind of interesting to read some of the information that was on that information sheet. So really appreciate you being here today and kind of kicking off our first show. Some of the things that Don and I are talking about doing, Matt, in this next 2 or 3 weeks, we've got Foster Care Month in the month of April. So I think Don has some really good contacts in that, and that's a great subject. Also, we know that there's 6 weeks left in the legislative process up in Jefferson City, and there's some bills going on right now about vaccine passports. That's real controversial. Can you not travel without a vaccine passport? Some countries and some states are going to try to require that. In Missouri, hopefully not. But that's going to be a topic. And then Don being a veteran and many, many people being veterans, and we always want to support and honor our veterans. There's a lot of issues that veterans have, especially in healthcare issues, where they're just really been let down by the government. And so we're going to start discussing some of those issues and having veterans on and things like that. So we'll have legislators on, veterans on, we'll have foster moms on. So the next 3 weeks, we've got a lot of, I think, great programming to be on. And so, Don, what did we say we were going to end our show?
Be the change.
Be the change. You know, changing times, real solutions, real issues, real discussions. I think we did that today. We'll continue to do that. We're going to have some music. Matt's going to get us some music to kind of kick off our show, where you'll always hear that same music every time. And so we'll continue to improve our show. Hope you enjoyed it today, and we'll be back next Wednesday, same time, 10 a.m.
Thanks for joining us, you guys. It's been a lot of fun.